excited to host Oana Taut, CEO of BuildFlow AI, and I have been checking the tool out, and it's really amazing to see AI, AEC development, and what you are building. So, thanks a lot for being on the show.
Amazing. Thank you for having me, Myra.
Yeah, so I want to do like a little bit background before we see the demo. So, uh, tell us like out of all things you could do in life, why you chose architecture.
Oh, well, this is a very good question. Goes very deep. And the reason it goes very deep is because I was one of the weird ones that actually, I think I was 12 when somehow I just heard the name architect pronounced and I knew that's what I want to be. I didn't know exactly what they do, um, or what it means or anything. I just heard the name pronounced and I knew that I wanted to be one. So I was also lucky that well, I come from Romania. I don't know if you knew that. And in my country at that time, there were still these vocational schools, and um, they were for the high school years. You were able to choose a vocational school, and in my town there was a vocational high school for architecture, which was brilliant. And I was able to attend that and to kind of get started very early. Like I was 14 already, starting to think about small interior design and houses and this sort of things. But it was an amazing experience and a lot of freedom, of course, because you're in your high school years. And then it was very straightforward for me to just continue on the same path. I never looked back, and I still don't. There are people that are asking me now these days if I still call myself an architect, and I also hear there is in amongst some part of the profession there is a few people who want to get away from that name and want to kind of be able to not call themselves architects, and I fully respect that. But um, I think yes, I still call myself an architect, and I still enjoy that I'm able to call myself an architect. And at the bottom of my heart, that's still what I am and will be.
Yeah, like, and the definition of architecture, like, if you think in real world, is one way, but like developing a product, that's also architecting a solution for digital
Yeah,
and
we
yeah.
are. Yeah, we have grown to, I think, to, well, some people, most of the people, like the general population, have grown to understand architect as so much more, whereas the more traditional architects from the architecture profession have grown to understand it as so much less. So it's a strange kind of double funnel.
I see. So I saw you like did masters at IAC, and uh, you like have
Yeah, well,
previous experience. So
yeah. So as I was starting to say, I knew I was going to be an architect since I was 12. Did the most traditional path to architecture. I finished my um, architectural training in Bucharest, and then I decided to leave Romania to move out into another country. So I chose Ireland, and then I was very lucky there to find a very small architectural practice that all of a sudden got a very big important project. So I don't know, a very strange turn of events and strange chain of situations led to me taking over that project and being the lead architect on it, which was a fantastic ride because all of a sudden, immediately after university, I was able to um, be the driving force in a large team of people with many different consultants and very many different disciplines, and to be in charge with this amazing, huge project that was also it was a lucky project in a way because it already had been started by a different architect. So we took it over and redid. the redesign. But it was a fantastic journey to go from spending all my life in Romania, then to be immersed in another culture in Ireland, and to then design and lead a project for yet another culture, which was in Qatar. So I had this immediate deep dive, and it wasn't without frustration, right? It was looking back, it was an amazing ride, but I gained a lot of understanding of how a real architectural development and how real relationship with clients work. Um, and I became very interested and curious to find ways to make it work better, to make our work easier and more enjoyable, to kind of get away from doing the stuff we don't like and get more time for doing the things that we do like. Um, and also, I understood the client. I mean, this is one of the things that I don't see so often in with other architects. I understood why the client is frustrated, right? Because they were asking for um, they were asking for a lot of assurance, and we were not able to offer it with the traditional tools and in the traditional way that we were working. And then after this very large project, which lasted about 2 or 3 years of my career, I also took other smaller projects. Well, not necessarily small, but smaller. I took some school designs in Ireland that were, of course, done for the Department of Education and Development, so a government agency as client. Then I also worked with some um, hotel owners and managers in Ireland. And at the very low side of the scales, I also worked with private clients for small house extensions. Um, and throughout, all the clients had the same kind of frustration. They all needed the assurance, and they were asking for a lot of reports and a lot of um, data and things that we as architects were not trained to do in the traditional school. We um, don't enjoy it particularly, and we prefer not to. And I know my boss um, was an amazing mentor, but he was very much against this. He was a very traditional old school architect. He was very much against giving all these reports and doing all these numbers, and he couldn't understand why they are needed. But of course, the client is, on the other hand, going to invest a lot of money and a lot of time in this project, and no matter the size of the client. I mean, if it's a big real estate developer, they still have a lot of risk with the project and invest a lot of money because they also deal with bigger projects. Whereas if it's a very small um, uh, private client for a house extension, it's still their life's worth kind of investment. So they need the same assurance from us. Um, and yes, with this kind of frustration accumulating over about 8 years, I I decided to um, go back to study and find a way in which I can perform my job better and in a more enjoyable way. And this is where I found IAC, luckily, um, and I managed to get there a lot of value. I'm not sure if you're familiar with IAC's work, but um, they or we, because I'm still I'm still in very good relationships with them, um, are teaching a lot of the more um, top of the line tools. And apart from tools, the methodologies and the computational design and digital fabrication and robotics, and it's all very exciting, very that kind of positive atmosphere where you feel you can do anything that you want. So I was very lucky to land in this place to continue my studies, and this is where I got this intense passion for computational design first. Um, And afterwards, so in the second year, I kind of landed on the topic of AI and how it could improve architecture, and I found it fascinating. So I continued on this topic since.
Yeah, like I could see like an immense jump from like traditional to like directly from technology and that to in AI. So and it, like I also think like with your masters, like having the intention that okay, these are the problems in the industry and the frustrations you have dealt and how we can solve that. Having that like problem space and knowledge really helps in like when you're developing your own startup or product that these are the gaps I can solve using technology. But also
Yeah.
like developing with AI, it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of convincing power for the industry to adopt. So like, how are you managing that?
Um, I'm not. Um, I don't. I think AI is right now a buzzword, and whereas the industry wouldn't necessarily trust AI, they like to see the buzzword and they get very excited about it. So I don't think it's about convincing. I think it's about delivering a good product with or without AI. But if you do use it, I mean, by all means, you can make sure it's visible, right? But no, I mean, for the moment, Buildflow AI is in the early stages, and therefore we don't trust the AI, right? So we still take a long time to deliver our work, and mostly because we want to have the supervision over what is happening. So we are developing the backend, and we are developing all the automations necessary. We are including AI in them, but we don't yet deploy it for the client. We keep all this part in the backend, um, and allow the client to have this very flawless interaction first, in the most efficient way possible. And this is our key motto. Um, and then allow them to receive the good results that we checked and we made sure that are up to our standards as architects. So we there is a bright future for AI, but I think we didn't find it yet. So we still need to treat it with a bit of distrust, I think.
Got it. Speaking about client experience and interaction, I think like this might be a good time to demonstrate how like the product works.
Sure, I will try to share my screen. Mm, hold on there. So I just wanted to not to give away by going directly onto the opened tab. So you can I'm aware that we make it not so easy to find it, so you can find our product at app.buildflowai.com. And you will be greeted by this, which is intended to be, so the product is at the moment in beta stage. We are able to take client requests and we are able to deliver, but the interface, as I was saying before, we have intentionally chosen to have a disconnect between the front end, so between the interface and between the back end, to be able to have this control over the results at the moment. So the front end, what you see is basically showcasing one of our projects that we created many samples for, a lot more than the client is asking for at the moment. So you can go through it and you can see all the different designs. And this is how Buildflow AI is all set up. It works by basically deploying different typologies of design that can be adjusted to any site. So we do a lot of work on the typology and on these kind of expert systems rather than on giving the client a lot of interaction on the app. And this is a very it was a very important choice for us from the start. So you can see different versions of the same design. Most importantly, you can actually have a look at the daylight and shading of the that happens on the facade, and this is an important criteria that we always take into account in the optimization process. Work better for the shade, I think. So yeah, you can see how the shade is distributed over these terraces, and you will see that we are making some very conscious choices about what kind of topologies to design, and the balconies are a very important key in our designs. Of course, we always allow the choice of no balconies because we intend to allow the client to make to make the choice that are right for their development and for their business. Another factor is that you can see a lot of the like a dashboard of what the design provides, and this will give you a glimpse of what kind of measurements we are looking for. So in here you have the floor efficiency, the per floor efficiency of the building. So if we go to the lower, I went a bit too fast. If we go to the lower floor buildings, you will see that the first floor has a good quantity of terrace versus usable space, and also a small amount of core, and so on. And another key aspect that we will definitely be using more of in the future is that one of the calculations and one of the metrics that we are providing to the client is the distribution of different building components, not materials at this stage, but components, so that on the one hand, the client can make more accurate pricing, and on the other hand, you can plug it into a building life cycle cost or a building carbon footprint cost analysis to understand how how sustainable your development is. So as I was saying, this is really intended to be a demo, the front end, but what is happening where we actually take the client request is by going to this button here that you can simply fill up create an account, fill up a survey with very minimal information that will send us all this information and allow us to start the process of generating and producing your report. So I won't go through all the steps of the survey because all of these fields are necessary, but you can see more information on the LinkedIn page of Buildflow AI and soon on the website as well. The only other aspect after filling up this very short survey, we will basically be in contact with you by email. So as I was saying, the front end and the back end are disconnected at this point, and we do use humans both when we receive the information and also when we deliver the project to transform the information in any way first and to check that the results are correct. And this is because we see a lot of AI in this step, at least in the future. But at the moment, we want to make the most simple and straightforward experience for the client. So we will put our architects to work in understanding if the information is set up correctly, in understanding if the what is for example, we only ask for the address of the plot. We don't ask for a plot boundary or for any other more accurate information. And this is where we do the work of understanding this accurate information. And at the end of this test, we will be in contact with you by email, and it is also by email that we will deliver the results, which come in the form of a report. I can't of the report right now because this is for a client, but you receive a report with a lot of design options, uh, all comparable, so all the numbers that you might need to quickly compare the results, and also with a lot of the more detailed information. Apart from this, you also receive the raw data so that you can plug it into your analysis. So I will come back to the
Yep.
screen to see you again. Um, yeah, so this is in a nutshell, what our platform is at the moment in its phase. We intend to have a very expandable platform, so we intend to be able to, at the moment, we're able to generate 3 typologies of building, which are the 3 most common ones. But we are constantly adding more to it, and we will have a new one at least in the next 2 or 4 months, and so on. So we are keeping it very expandable and very kind of plug and play platform. Um, and mostly our main intention is to give a very straightforward experience to our end user. And our end user is the real estate developer. So we are not creating a platform for architects at this stage. We are trying to kind of deliver these results directly to who we think can make most impact.
Got it. I think like I really appreciate like the whole development you have done, because like I think like with this technology, uh, we are getting information from client in a different manner, and like we're presenting in a different manner, which this whole digital infrastructure can really like escalate all the communication efforts. And
Yeah.
also
And
like, sorry, go ahead.
yeah, no, for the moment, the real intention is to mimic as much as possible of the experience that a real estate developer would have with an architect, um, but make it in a much more efficient way. So be able to make it a lot faster, both from the amount of information that the real estate developer needs to provide, and also from the amount of time that it takes to deliver the results. Now, it has to be said that depending on the accuracy that you're looking for, we may not be the right platform. And this is also where this keeping a manual control over the platform at this moment makes a lot of sense, because we are able to understand if a client made a mistake. We are able to understand if maybe this is not the right project for us. So we will just be in contact with the client and say this is not the right project, or we need extra information about this.
Got it. So like if I'm a real estate client for say, I will be using this platform at early stage of my project for like feasibility study, efficiency study, and if I want to use this platform, like as you showed, I need to sign in and do complete all the 7 steps. But how would I get information about like potential pricing for this? Like, should I select this or not?
You don't. The quick answer is you don't. So it was one of the intentions to, whenever we are deciding whether to develop something or not, we always put it in front of one single question. Is it how much value it brings versus how much effort it requires? Um, and we put this effort on both sides, on the side of our team and also on the side of the real estate developer. So what we realized is that to be able to give a lot more detail and a lot more accuracy. So, for example, like information about pricing, information about where the next development land comes in. It's either that it would require too much effort from our side to develop, and we are not feasibly going to be able to make it in this stage. So we decided to postpone it. Or in some cases, it will require the real estate developer to input too much information and to go into too much detail, and it won't be feasible for them to spend time on our app when they can simply call their architect. And again, there are many projects that even in this very early stage they will require to go to a local architect, and we also emphasize that this is a key aspect. So we are mostly we intend our app to be used mostly in even before deciding to go to the architect, um, when you will need to test many, maybe 10 or 30 different sites to decide onto one that you will then go through the normal architectural process as you would with your local architect or with your architect, depending on what you want.
Yeah, so if I get it right, it helps the real estate client to select which lot is best for them and what type of development would make a lot of sense in that lot.
Yes, exactly. So it started, to be honest, you know how you spoke with many founders and even with VCs in the industry right now. Um, and they always will tell you about problem solution or client problem solution. But the original problem that I started from had no client. You know, it was the problem was of the urban land itself, and that is that there are many pieces of land, many plots that are overlooked by the real estate developers, and instead they go to expand horizontally the cities because in the on the outskirts they can find um, plots that are more easy to tackle. So you know the perfect rectangular plot with a good proportion, and that allows you to build what you want. That makes a very high competition on these plots, but also means that you know the inner city will probably not have all the density it could get, and the cities will expand a lot, which is not ideal. And this is our unstated problem now. We starting from this, I tried to understand which is the actual agent in this that can make most impact. And of course, some will say it's the city planners, and indeed they are, but we couldn't influence them necessarily. So the second agent that makes a lot of difference in this sense is the real estate developer. And we often find, or I often found in my work before that they always think that they have the information, the right information, but they never actually have the complete information at a glimpse. And this is what we are trying to solve. We are trying to give them the ability to um, you know, to make it a no-brainer, you will go to Buildflow AI, ask for a feasibility report because it takes 5 minutes. It will take 5 minutes. Right now, it takes a lot more. Um, Ask for a feasibility report from Buildflow AI because it takes 5 minutes, and it will allow you to see what you can build, how much you can build. It will allow you to compare apples with apples. So it will allow you to compare an inner city plot with an outer outskirt plot from the same points of view, and both designed or developed in the best way for the site. So this is what we are like the improvement we are able to make in the world, hopefully, right now.
That's amazing. And like it's very interesting that you mentioned like and analyzing this problem from the agent point of view, and because it's a very complex problem. There are a lot many parameters, actors, and constraints. And I'm curious to know like for the initial like product development, what were some parameters you prioritized and what were some assumptions you moved forward to let this go and then keep on adding more features along the way?
Um, it actually took quite a long time to reach to uh, an algorithm that can take in the right parameters only and output, or evaluate the output based on the right um, uh, goals or targets. And it took a lot of going back and forward because it's very easy to make things too complex and too complicated where they don't necessarily need to be. So we are at the moment we have a good amount of parameters that we set up internally um, to keep the form in shape and to kind of make everything make sense. But from the client, we are only asking for very few parameters. So in reality, all we need to know is the plot, the plot um, ratio, the buildable ratio on the plot, um, the desired number of heights or number of floors and the floor height, and that's it. Um, all the other information that we're asking for is mainly to allow the developer to set their goals. So again, on the goals side, we are taking we intend to take to have the most balanced uh, output, right? But we are allowing the client to set up um, their preference as well. So we are balancing between the building or the site yield, so the usable area, um, the building orientation, and of course, orientation sometimes can be impacted a lot more, sometimes not too much because it depends on the alignment of the buildings and so on. Um, and desire one of the other goals is the desirable is it desire to have more sun hours on the facade or more shade, and this is something that we keep very open because we at the moment we are looking at um, applications, I would say globally, but not necessarily we are focusing in some specific areas, but the platform is able to take a request from anywhere in the world. And of course, different locations have different requirements for different desire desirability for light.
Yeah. Like I was thinking on similar lines because like I'm like if I think backward, is like okay, client, let's say they wants to maximize return on investment. So one parameter is like what's the building cost, and then building materials influence the building cost. So
Yeah,
if in your generative algorithm, like how do you incorporate it, if it's a steel or concrete, and then also within a city, if it's a downtown, there is like more labor, and then there's like other area. So there's a lot more like thumb rules people use sometimes for like approximate cost estimation and
yeah,
stuff.
yeah. And what we intend to do is to give the real estate developer the tools to really understand all of these numbers. So what we found a lot is that a lot of these um, numbers that have to do more rather than with the initial yields that have to numbers that have to do with the lifetime cost of the building are hidden from the client. They rarely see that until maybe I don't know, tender stage when there is a lifetime cost estimate or a lifetime feasibility assessment. And what we intend to do is to say there are so many wrong decisions that can be taken along the way before you reach to that point, and it will be very costly for the client to make the right decisions or to pick the right materials and the right details to to counterbalance all the wrong decisions that were made. So we are very intentional about giving all the um, all the information needed so that the client can have this early view of of the complete building, not only the bottom line, right? Not only the usable or leasable area.
Got it. So like you're taking more like let's build sustainable, healthy places first, and like prioritizing and then prioritizing like cost efficiency rather than cost
Yeah,
efficiency, which comes at a compromise at sustainability or lifestyle.
yeah. So our mission is to create a built environment that is more sustainable. Our offer to the client is do a feasibility report 10 times faster, and you are able to do 10 times more of them.
All right. Yeah, like I think it's a whole radical approach getting like real time, quick feedback, faster decision making, because that's a lot of client wants. So, like 6 months ago, I was like exploring this problem where we there are a lot of data of like geospatial data analysis where for a plot you can get Mastercard data of what are the spending around that area, like students data or cafes data. And I was thinking like for the building program recommendation, can you use all this other data to augment recommendations to the client? What kind of building infrastructure out of all possible sites will make sense? What are the spending habits, local uh, geographic data and stuff like that? But it's like very complex problem.
Yeah. Yeah, of course. So this is where we are aiming. We are aiming to have the most straightforward solution that takes data from different sources and outputs a design at the end. There are already some solutions that take data from different sources and output kind of report or a summary of the data. There are already solutions that take a parcel and allow you to design what you want on it. What we aim to do is to have this full experience for our client, which is not necessarily looking to design a new building. They are not interested in this, and it's not where they should spend their time. And at the same time, they probably at the moment they probably have their own intuition and their own data sources that they look for. So again, that's not the priority that we can solve because that's a very costly problem to solve at the moment. So as I was saying, the platform is built in a way that it can expand in different ways, and it can become like a plug-in kind of platform that we don't know for the moment whether it's going to be a closed circuit or an open platform for different developers to add and to plug in various components to it. But the intention is to always, as I was saying, keep in mind the ease of use for our client and to keep in mind this value for time cost um, ratio.
Yeah, and like the web-based aspect with like visualizing various options also helps like the clients to their
Yeah,
stakeholders if they want to present, okay, how do we make decisions, and like that's also
exactly.
great.
So you can receive the data back on the app. You can receive the report, and you can also receive the raw data to plug into your financials. Now, again, in a in the future, we'd like to be able to actually plug your own data into the app and prepare your financials to include to the printable report. But this is for future development again.
Yeah, I was thinking like each client can have their own portfolio, like of all the
Yeah,
projects they have listed or
yeah,
something like that. Yeah, and if I get it right, so the front end is rendering all the building options, optioneering, and data visualization of like various distributions, and the back end where you do like your simulation and analysis, and you store your result in the database, and you're fetching
exactly.
it in the front end, right?
Exactly. That's exactly it. And right now there is a very strict separation. We don't allow data to pass on directly without being supervised. But the intention is that after a number of months or years, depending on how long it takes, we will be able to have this almost immediate feedback where the client presses generate and you get the generated version in a minute.
Yeah, and for all the like AEC tech founders and entrepreneurs listening to this, like what will be your piece of advice if they are in a stage of developing a tech product?
Oh, I'm at the point of taking advice. So we are still, as I was saying, we are still very early, and I don't know. Talk to the clients. This is the advice that I'm getting, and it's the probably the hardest one to do. It's also you have a when you have an idea and you want to start a startup, you always have a very strong idea, a very strong feeling that that's correct. So it's very difficult to put yourself in a position to find out that it's not correct. Um, no, I think we were lucky because I had the strong feeling that this is a correct idea, and it got confirmed and more confirmed. And by talking to the clients, you only discovered that there is actually much more potential than what you thought. So in our case, it was actually a very good. It was a very good experience talking to most clients, but um, it's in any case, it's very rewarding, especially when you do have something to show them, and it's very rewarding to see how they can think they might potentially use this, or to see how it could actually help their day to day or their team.
I see. And like, is it like bootstrapped? Are you looking for fundraising? Like, what's the plan?
For the moment, it is bootstrapped. Um, we are open to discussions, but we are not um, actively looking for funding right now. The focus is still on the clients and getting as as many um, as many projects going, as many trials or partnerships. So we are not focused specifically on funding at the moment.
I see. And is there anything you wish you would have done differently if you were to develop this product again?
Not in terms of the product. No, I wish I would have. Well, I wish I would have well, 6 hands and three brains.
More time.
Um, exactly. More time is always the need, especially as a single funder. Um, but one thing that I wish I would have done was talk to clients a bit earlier, not because um, it um, not because it showed anything that was not going in the right direction, but because it showed a lot more potential. So I would have been a lot more comfortable and develop a lot faster if I really knew if I had the discussions with clients at the right time. But you hear this a lot from funders, always saying they wish they would have talked to customers more. So if there is anything that a new founder is looking to get from this discussion is do talk to founders, do talk to
Talk to more
clients.
customers. Yeah, more
Exactly,
clients.
exactly. And the no excuses works really well in this situation because we do have a lot of excuses. We are like, oh, but I don't know exactly who's the customer yet. Oh, but I don't have any customers because I don't have any product. Oh, but what am I going to say to them? Um, but there are people are open to give you some feedback if you approach them in the right way. Um, and I'm aware now that I'm repeating a lot of the advice that I was given. So um, yeah, I'm sure everyone who's thinking about starting a startup, they already know this advice.
Yeah. I'm curious to know, like, for example, uh, there are like few problems based on your experience in the industry, and what are those problems which, if you had more time, you would like to work or solve?
Um, well, I'm normally the one thinking about like the overall, the larger scale. So I would think the problems that I see are the problems that I'm trying to solve right now, which is it's very fulfilling. I'm thinking about the aspect of generating buildings, and I'm thinking a lot about there is this separation where I'm not going to go into the definition of architecture right now, but um, probably in your school you were taught the same, that architecture is between art and science, and we need to know a bit of everything. Um, I think a um, there is an aspect of architecture that is really intrinsically human and that is really um, only be able to be performed by an architect. and we find it very hard to define exactly which is this, and we find it very hard to define what characteristics this architect has. But for me, the art part or the creativity part is where we thrive, and where we are able to dig down in our instinct and create a space that feels amazing, and that you have this um, experience of space that you normally have when you're going into a very well designed building, right? But I feel that this part of the work that we are doing has been so covered up by a lot of the science, not necessarily even science, but a lot of the redundant tasks that we have to do every day, and that the repeatable aspects that we have to do manually, and they shouldn't be done manually. The part of um, for me, and this is kind of the the result I came through after my research at the thesis in the thesis here in NIAC. Um, the the structural or kind of systematic aspect of a building, so the distribution of space, um, the structural components, the the orientation, the size of most of the components should be done automatically, and we should be able to do it fully automatically without any human intervention. Whereas the creativity aspect of the design, the design intent, the spatial experience should be able to be done by an architect. And then I see AI being able to help us with both. So on the one hand, you have the systemic aspects of the space distribution that, of course, already can be solved by expert systems. It could be solved a lot faster by probably graph neural networks. We need to continue the experimentation in that. Um, but on the other hand, the creativity or the building experience is also interesting to think of from the point of AI, and this is part of some experiments that I've done, because you could potentially have architects designing um, uh, um, these archetype spaces that could then be adapted to the space distribution that was generated automatically. And this is where I think um, architecture could progress, but we are a long way from it.
Yeah, like I totally like agree with you because like the more we could have tools or processes where human can spend time on things they like creating, cook, and with some automation. So there's also like AI for creativity, human machine co-creation in the creative process, and also AI for automation. So can we have this pipeline where your creative process is augmented by AI in feasibility and is augmented by AI for production? Then we love more of what we like then.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And then you can have more time on the one hand for creativity, but on the other hand, I only imagine how much experimentation and how much research time it would open up for architects. And to be honest, architects are already trained and have the mind um, to understand very complex aspects, and they would be really useful in many fields of research. But we find ourselves stuck in this daily routine of doing the tedious jobs that we have to do sometimes just for that one glimpse of excitement when you're first sketching up a building, or when you're first sketching up a very interesting detail that you're passionate about. I think we should, have that all the time. We should. That's the work that we want to do, and that's the work that our I would say ancestors, that our previous generations of architects did. Um, no, there is a lot to be said about how much performant the buildings were in the sense that we are analyzing performance today, but from the point of space experience, they were amazing buildings. And this is because they had the time and the dedication to do this, and they were respected for that. So um, if I can make an impact, if I could make an impact in the world, would be to um, build up the tools that are necessary so that architects can um, do the things that they are good at and be respected for doing that.
I see. And I'm curious to know, like, what are aspects of like in architecture and urban planning or real estate development which you foresee AI can be useful?
Um, Again, I think a lot of the system or the systemic aspects can be interpreted by AI or produced that much faster by AI. And you see already a lot of these simulations, for example, being sped up to 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 give you the information almost immediately. And of course, we are losing some accuracy with this. But I think it's very important to ask ourselves, like, this is not a coding competition. It's very important to ask ourselves what level of accuracy we need at every single step and at every single stage of design. So in this sense, the platforms that make wind simulations a lot faster by using AI, yes, they have a bit less accuracy, but it's still 10 times better than not doing a wind simulation at all. So, we should allow this kind of AI to advance. Um, Now, there is a lot of aspects in which we could potentially use AI in the future, but I think it's very important to understand what AI will not be able to do. And I think I don't think we should leave creativity in the hands of AI. And of course, the topic of AI creativity is very wide and can be interpreted in so many ways. But I don't think creativity should be left in the hands of a machine because, it's very important to understand. And this is not very clear for people who didn't really get their hands dirty to try and build an AI model. But it's very important to understand just how not intelligent it is, right? And I know this is kind of going against the grain because we now see all these new journey images
Yeah,
and we are all amazed about how intelligent it is and what it can do. And the results are really amazing. But it's important to understand that the intelligence part is really um, uh, very non complex. Our mind works a lot more complex. We use the term neurons all the time, but our human neurons work in a very different way, and we are not mathematically they work the same, but we are able to make connections that our AI models at the moment cannot do. So it's important, I think, to understand how kind of simplistic the problem is viewed at the moment. Not to say that there's not a lot of great potential, but to kind of um, put down our expectations on one hand and to understand what it can actually be used to help us rather than think that it can solve everything and just leave it there because it will solve everything at some point. And I think it's very important that architects are the driving force of where this is going in the future. Um, we are generally, as a profession, we are very slow to catch up in the digital field. Um, and yes, I left this kind of this segment of the profession, the more traditional design-oriented aspect of the work. I left it a while ago, but I'm aware that I'm still talking to some of my old colleagues, and I'm aware that the large majority of people still think of design is what it always was. We do CAD, but we'd like to do BIM. They're um, at that kind of level of thinking right now, and it's very important to kind of drive as many brilliant minds um, that have studied architecture towards our pond of AI kind of geeks, um, to to make sure that the um, aspects of AI that we will see in the built environment are driven by someone that has the experience and the understanding, and we are not allowing this to be kind of um, sent out or designed, generated by, machine learning experts and engineers, which are very useful, um, but maybe don't have the same understanding that we have coming from the background of architecture.
I see. Yeah, like I think like one of the point I have seen is like a lot of in academia when students are experimenting with this AI models and they are thinking here's how they can apply in the industry, and like in industry when they venture out and there's a whole different challenge they need to deal, and there's a adoption convincing. So there's this gap. I don't know how we can bridge it, but like, what are your thoughts? How like because like students, like if in the curriculum, it's they're too much focused on technology. They also like the domain problem space. So like how they are like balancing it out with knowing the domain as well as the technology.
Yeah, this is a great question, and I think it's a very puzzling one, because indeed academia has a very structured way of producing research, and they are producing great results, but then you almost never see them applied in practice. There are some initiatives that are trying to bring kind of spawn projects from research into practice, but what they lack is, the project was not defined from a business point of view or from early on. So it probably does solve a very interesting problem with a very interesting solution. But if there is no client for it, if there is no customer, it's very unlikely that it will make its way into the built environment or into the profession in any significant way. So that's where a lot of very good projects stay in academia and never get developed. On the other hand, you always see uh, business-minded people developing, um, developing platforms or tools that do use AI, and that are going to be applicable in the field, but they very likely don't have the structured way and the focus on I will say quality that you get in academia. And then on both sides, um, it's very likely that they don't have a lot of the base experience in designing and building um, that is necessary. And that's probably why you see a lot more quality development and quality ideas being uh, done at the level of production, at the level of detail or manufacturing and digital fabrication. And it's an um, amazing field, and it's bringing a lot of value. But still, we need to apply the same features at the larger level to be able to, take these AI applications into a usable space. Because so far, what we see a lot is these newer technologies being applied in, pavilions and exhibition spaces. So they are not really able to make an impact yet.
Got it. I have a rapid fire round to wrap up the interview. So
Okay.
you'll have like 10 seconds and you gotta answer it very brief. So let's do it.
I'm not sure if I'm able to do brief, but let's try.
Okay. Which city is in your travel bucket list?
LA.
Is there any business or technical book which made a big impact in your life?
Uh, well, I read Space is the Machine by Bill Hillier a long time ago, and it opened up a lot of the thinking um, in the same graph aspects that I'm thinking in today. So maybe that was a big impact.
Got it. Your role model?
Uh, skip. I don't I don't have one single person that yeah, no, I don't have one single person in mind. I take parts from various people, um, and normally try to appreciate everyone for what they are good at, and don't care too much about the rest. So
You can take couple of names if you want.
uh, yeah, no, I'd rather not give
Okay,
names.
okay. Your favorite movie?
Eternal Sunshine of Spotless Heart.
How does a day in your life look like?
Coffee, computer, coffee, computer. Maybe some quick lunch. Computer, especially now in the last 2 years. It's a lot of Zoom, meeting loads of interesting people, but on Zoom. So a lot more coffee and um, picking up my baby from school, and that's always the high, uh, the high end of the day.
I see. What are your hobbies?
I love sports. I used to live in a mountain kind of area, so I love snowboarding a lot. I haven't done it for a while because Barcelona is not the best place for it, not the most connected. Um, I love. I used to do a bit of longboarding, any water sports, you know, yoga, running, everything sporty.
I see. Um, what is one thing that most people don't know about you, but they'll be surprised to know?
There are so many things most people don't know about me. Um, the one of the things I would say is that I I really enjoy learning, so I'm always on the lookout for something else to learn, and that's kind of my hobby as well as my day to day. So um, sometimes it may appear like my mind doesn't rest, but yeah, I guess that's one thing. Also, I have not very good humor, as in I sometimes make bad jokes, and some of my friends know this.
You made good jokes on the interview.
Yeah,
Okay,
not everyone that knows this.
I see. And how do you prioritize your learning?
I don't. I'm very scattered. Actually, this is probably the one thing that people don't know about me. I'm very scattered and not as organized as I wish I were. But I have the ability to remember a lot of things. So I might be, reading on one topic, on an AI topic for 5 minutes, and then going to read 10 minutes on a business topic, and then going back to search for something about my baby on the internet, and very, very not prioritized, unfortunately.
I see. Is there anything which we didn't cover in this interview and you would like to share?
Uh, I think we covered too much with this last round. No, I don't. I think we were able to speak about most of the things, and I think maybe I went into too much blabber on some of the things, so your audience will please excuse me.
You did an amazing job, and like I must appreciate like all the like work you have been doing at Build Flow. And for the people who are watching, definitely check out the studio final presentation of Vana. So it was also like amazing work, and Great.
Yes, do check out our students in MACAD, IAC, Barcelona. Um, are brilliant students, but the students in MACAD are actually online, so they are connecting from all over the world. And we are able to drive a lot of innovation in there. So it's a very interesting program.
Right. And lastly, like how can our viewers follow your work and keep up to date?
I'm almost always on LinkedIn now, so I'm happy to um, answer. I try to answer all the messages I'm getting and to meet all the people who want to meet. Always happy to have an interesting chat. So that's also where I will post most of the updates. At some point, there will be a very good website of Buildflow AI. At the moment, I think the best place to go is the app to see if we made any improvements.
Great. All right. Thanks a lot for your time for this interview. It was quite insightful and glad to know you and your work and your thoughts. So have a nice rest of your weekend.
Thank you, Mayur, and thank you for hosting me. It was amazing to get to chat to you. And yeah, thanks for making this inquisitive round as well into my life.
I see. All right. See you. Bye bye.